time. And it may come afterwards, but it takes a little bit of preparation, right? Now, some of you may see, and what you may see is pictures. And that's an in-the-moment kind of a thing. So somebody shares something with you, you're in a situation, you're thinking about something, and you'll see a picture or you'll see a rolling movie. How many of you feel like that happens to you all the time? Right? You see pictures. So I have met dozens of people who get all of these pictures and they don't know what any of them mean. And I ask them one simple question: what do you think that is? Yeah, did you ask the Lord, what does that mean? And do you know what every single person has said to me the first time around? I totally didn't think to ask him that. So here's my suggestion for those of you who are seers, who regularly see pictures, and you haven't yet gotten an interpretation. Ask. Ask, what does this mean? Because I haven't had a single person, hey, beautiful girls, I haven't had a single person come back to me after they've had a vision or a dream or a picture and had them say, I didn't hear anything. Every single person has come back and said, I heard this, 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 and this. And then guess what? They have another, question. They have another question. And then I ask them what? What did the Lord say about that? And they say, I don't know, I didn't think to ask. See, there's this weird thing, thinking that revelation, and I'm going to put this, hearing God is our birthright, let's put it up here, that revelation is Him. Revelation isn't a thing, it's not a thought, it's not a gift. Revelation is Him. When God reveals something to you, it comes with His presence active in you to explain what it is that He's telling you. I have seen so many people who are kind of navigating and they're hearing God, and they almost, in fact, this is really happening in the church around the world, is I've noticed people talk about revelation or prophecy per se, and they talk about it like it's this disembodied droplet that happens in somebody's life. Do you know what I'm talking about? And it's like, I heard this, and now I'm trying to work it out. I'm like, why would you want to work it out? Why wouldn't you go to the very person who revealed it and say, let's play with this together? I pictured almost like, when you give your kids like a train set, and you're excited to give them the train set, not hi, so they can go do it by themselves, but so that you can play with them with it. That right? That's the whole point. Is to play with them with it.
Or if you're me, I box them out and play with it all by myself.
Well, that's true too. It's so good. I love you. Revelation for me is always, you put this in big print, an invitation. When you think that you perceive something from God, it's always an invitation to greater relationship and intimacy so that you can play with the thing He just revealed to you. Isn't that so good? So you shouldn't ever be going, I don't know what that means. I'm not sure. It should be, or I'm going to encourage you to go to, what does that mean? Now, I have had some revelations that the Lord hasn't given me an understanding of for a year and a half. And some of them come within a matter of moments. But when that year and a half one happens, isn't it so exciting, right? So how many of us have had, the Lord shared something with you, you didn't know really what it meant, and it was a year or more until you found out what it meant? Okay, who wants to share? Take about 20 seconds and share what it was that the Lord showed you, and then what it was that it meant that you found out down the road. Does anybody want to do that? Yeah, thanks, Jared.
The first time I got words, a bunch of stuff was said, and it was all true. And then at the very end, there was something that did not make any sense. It said, worshiper was the word that I got. And you could not find a guy who disliked worship music more than me, didn't want anything to do with it.
Couldn't find a guy who disliked it.
This was literally like 10 years ago.
I'm the girl who disliked it.
I know, right?
I hated it. I would sneak to the bathroom during worship, during church. Just let you know.
Me too.
Really?
No, I didn't do that. That's weird.
Yeah, that's so weird. Clearly we didn't find each other in the bathroom because there was a boys and girls bathroom, but you know.
Anyway, it was like 10 years ago, and it's funny, this year I found myself in this church leading worship for like, I don't know, 6 months or something.
Oh yeah, he so totally did. And the Lord said to me, I said, can we just have somebody up front just hosting our videos so that people don't feel like so awkward as we're just in these growing stages? Because we could have pulled a trigger and hired someone, you know, and got a band, but we're not in the like pulling trigger and fixing problems business. We're in a like, what's God doing? So I asked him and he said, ask Jared if he would lead worship. I'm like, does he like it? He goes, not so much. That's what he told me. And he said, but he leads karaoke. And he said, and by the way, most people don't really lead worship. They really lead like emotional experiences. So don't worry about it. He can just lead a couple of songs and worship might fall on you. And so anyway, I made the call.
Yeah, so anyway, but it's funny. It was part of a series of things that unlocked this whole like part of my identity that I didn't know was there.
Yes! And it was so genius.
Who knew?
I know, who knew, right? It was so genius. Okay, anybody else want to share one of their things that, like, so that's that thing where you're like, worshiper, like, do I even want to know what you mean by that? How many of you have words over your life and you're like, I'm still scared to ask what that means? Right. Yay! Okay, we won't put you on the spot for that one. Okay, so for seeing people, do any of you feel like, okay, just a little bit loved right now? Where the Lord is going, look at all these places where people hear me through seeing. It's so good, right? And it takes a little bit of interpretation. It takes a little bit of partnership. It's a fun adventure when you hear God through seeing. Okay, next, smelling. Okay, how weird is this? Now, I'll be honest with you, there's way more verses out there, but I didn't have enough time. So if you know of more, would you please write them down? And like, does anyone know of any more right off the top of your head? Okay.
Maybe this is the one that you have in 2 Corinthians, but how you can be a sweet-smelling savor unto the Lord, and to some people it's a smell of death, and to other people it's a smell of
Okay,
life.
look that up. No, it's not on here. That's genius. So I asked the Lord, really, are we doing smell? Like, is this a thing? And he said yes. And he had a couple of different thoughts on this. Have any of you felt like God spoke to you through smell? Any? Yay, Darby. What, Kathy? Yeah? Anyone want to share one of their experience, a little 20-second little tidbit of when you felt like a smell was the Lord speaking to you? Anyone want to? Don't have to. By the way, I'm not going to call on you. If you raise your hand, I'm not going to call on you, so no worries. Darby, you want to share?
A little bit.
Okay.
I don't even remember.
Hang on.
I don't even remember the situation, but I just remember smelling French fries.
And there were no French fries around.
No, we were here.
We were here, during service, and we were talking about hearing God. Mm-hmm. That's right, and you smelled French fries for somebody. Mm-hmm. That was so crazy. I love that. Yeah, Gladys. Hold on.
I have not experienced it, but I had a dental hygienist, and she and I were visiting about angels, and she said she had a long drive home after work, and she said she'd kind of get into the autopilot type of mentality, you know,
yeah.
She's just driving and not really being alert. And she said as a child, her father was a heavy smoker, and there was always this smell of smoke around him, and he had since passed. But as she's driving home this one night and not alert, she said suddenly she had this strong smell of smoke in the car. Oh. And right away she was alert, and right up ahead was an accident, and she was able to avoid it, and she just knew that was an angel protecting her.
Wow, that's so fun. So, one of the ways that I hear the Lord often is through what I call fragrance, and it's a perceiving smell, not an actual smell, but it's this thing where I perceive a fragrance of something, and it's one of the ways that I often hear the Lord. But many of you are familiar with, there are people who actually smell smells, and there was one particular gentleman who would smell a smell on the palm of his hand. And so they would do prayer lines, and he would just smell his hand in regards to somebody, and he would have a very strong odor. And then it was, I know, isn't that so crazy? And then he would say to the person, I'm smelling chocolate chip cookies. Does that mean anything to you? And the person would just totally start bawling and be like, my mother passed away last week, and chocolate chip cookies was the thing we always did together, and it meant so much. And I just told the Lord, if only I could make chocolate chip cookies with her one more time, it would mean so much to me. And so then they got to take that moment of fragrance and then talk to how the Lord wanted to minister to their heart. And I remember the person who was sharing this with me said they had like total judgment, was like, that's not God. Like that's just too weird. And then the Lord goes, really? He goes, you want to test me out on that? And he's like, seriously want to test you out? He goes, smell your hand. And he goes, onions? That was probably just me. When was the last time I had onions? But the first person who came up, he just kept hearing onions, onions, onions. And he goes, does onions mean anything to you? And the person just burst out crying. And it was this word for them. And so I just love how the Lord is so quirky, isn't he? Hello, he made giraffes. And he made all of the animals of South America. Let's just be honest. Every single animal is, right? It's crazy town. Greg watches the shows every single night. So the Lord loves to talk to us in these super creative ways. So how many of you have experienced or would like to experience the Lord in a smell this year? And go, you know what? I'd like to do that. Yay! Okay. Wouldn't that be fun? It's so good. Tasting and talking. So I have both physically and perceived. And some of you may actually taste something in your mouth, like an actual taste, and it actually has to do with something God wants to say in a particular situation. Has anyone experienced that? Oh, really? Okay. So that's possible. That's a thing. And I have not experienced that. But Ezekiel actually was given a scroll, and the Lord said to eat it. And it was sweet, and then it became bitter. I know, it's crazy what's in the Bible. So crazy. I knew you thought that's not even real. That's not even a thing. But there it is. It's craziness. And then, yeah.
That verse says, taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yes. Okay, will you write that one down for me? Thanks, Dan. Yes, exactly. And then, of course, talking is oftentimes when people start to talk, and that happens with me oftentimes, is that I don't know exactly what the Lord wants to say until I start to talk, and then it just starts to flow. And sometimes I'm listening and learning as I'm talking. So crazy. You've done this a lot, I bet, right? Do you want to share a little experience of that? It's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to point you out. Sorry. You can nod all you want. I will not call on you. I apologize. So keep nodding. I will not call on you. Sorry. Okay. And then, of course, that includes tongues. So many of us have a prayer language that we do with the Lord, and then many people have been in environments where somebody has given a message or a portion of a message in a language that they did not learn, and then somebody else has given an interpretation of that. So have any of you been in an environment where somebody has given a message in a tongue, and then somebody else gave an interpretation of it? There's a lot. Yay, I want to hear more of that. That's super fun. I have been around many people, probably, I don't know, maybe around 10 different times where somebody has been praying in tongues, either in a church service or when I was at Fuller, because there was a lot of international students at Fuller. And what's been really fun is about 10 different times I have been near somebody who said, when were you last in this remote area of whatever, because their personal prayer language was an actual earthly language that they never learned, and they knew what they were saying because this other person, it was their original language. So isn't that so fun? One guy just broke down crying. He's like, I haven't heard my home language, because it was a very remote village in South America. He said, I haven't heard my language in over 20 years. And he said, it so blessed me, to hear you speak it. And so isn't that fun? It's so crazy, right? I love it. And then feeling and okay, so how many of you feel like talking or tasting or having to do with the mouth is one of your predominant ways of hearing God? And some of it's even talking, like you don't even know what you're going to say, but you start to talk and then the Lord talks with you. Oh, nice. Anyone else? Yeah, Anne and Sharon. Yep. Fun, right? Okay, and then last, feeling and perceiving. How many of you are like, I'm totally a feeler and perceiver? Yes, so good that you know this about yourselves. I feel like personally, feelers and perceivers just totally get unrecognized in the church in America. I feel like feelers and perceivers typically have the greatest depth to what it is that they're hearing from the Lord, but they don't have the language to communicate it always. Because they are what? They are feeling and perceiving. And so it's at such a level of depth that once it translates into language, it takes some time sometimes to get it to that place of language. What often happens, and this is what happened in a relationship that I had, you remember this with Deb? Deb would be a feeler and perceiver, so I would call like turn on the faucet, and she would be feeling and perceiving something that God wanted to share, and then I would start saying it. And what would frustrate her, I know, right? What would frustrate her is that she'd be trying to describe it, and nobody understood what she was talking about. I mean, right, Sharon? And then I would start going, oh, I hear what you're saying, and I would say it, and it would all of a sudden make sense. And then that would frustrate her, right? Because she's like, I got that. I got that. And I'd be like, that was so awesome. I got that. And everybody understood. Once the Lord showed me, because I could see she was frustrated, I was like, Lord, what is this? And he goes, yeah, she got it. She's the one who got it. She's the one who turned on the faucet. Her particular way of hearing is this feeling and perceiving, and you kind of get to be a translator, but she's the one who turns on the faucet. You're just sharing what she opened up. And so I was able to honor her in that and tell her, this is what I'm seeing happening, and I wouldn't have things to share if you weren't turning on the faucet. And that happens. How many of you have been in like an auditorium or a church service or whatever, and you felt the Lord sharing something with you, and you really felt like it was something that was supposed to be shared to the group, and within a moment the person speaking shared the very thing that was on your mind, right? Isn't that's part of that feeling, perceiving, and being able to release it into the atmosphere, whether or not you're the person who has the words for it. The problem is a lot of these people think they don't get anything. A lot of people are very misunderstood in this. Because they can't say it with words, they think they don't have anything. And that is just simply not true. It is yes, you want to speak to this, please. Yeah.
I just want to add. I just want to add not only that, but is it on?
Yeah, it's on. Just hold it close.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
But it is downgraded if you are a feeler, emotional, and when you are an empath or a perceiver or feeler, you feel everything, and that is your communication with God. And in the Western Church, it is totally put to the ground. And
Yeah.
I had for years, and I am extremely that.
Yes, you are.
And it was just always knocked to the ground as nothing.
Yeah, and not only as nothing, but as possibly deceptive. How many of you have seen the train flannel graph, right? The train flannel
Yes,
graph.
that
First comes
flannel
faith and facts, and then feelings. And if the feelings lead your train,
Right.
you're in trouble. Have you
Yes.
not seen the flannel graph of the trains?
And
Right?
you're of the devil.
Yeah. And so if you let feelings lead you, you are going to be led astray. What people aren't recognizing is that the feelings of God are not negative. God's not freaked out. He's not panicked. He's not concerned. He's not worried. He's not troubled. The challenge with feelers is they may feel what's happening and not be able to change the channel to what God's doing. So many of these people feel very troubled by being oversensitive, and they try to actually shut down this very part of their identity because they find themselves overwhelmed by emotions all the time. I know, right? Some of you are having a healing right now from all of this because you walk into places and you feel the atmosphere of confusion, and you're like, oh, why did I feel so confused? Bad me. I felt like I was good going in, but I felt depressed today, and I don't even know why I felt depressed. Well, these people are very sensitive to atmospheres, so they're feeling what's happening. The good news is God never meant for us to be sensitive to what's happening. He made us to be sensitive to the intention of heaven. So once we are able to shift and go, I can be aware of what's happening, but I am consumed with the intention of God. And we no longer let the negative be our source of wisdom. It can totally change, radically change a feeling and perceiving person's life. Feelers and perceivers can often feel like they're going insane because they feel and perceive so much of the negative, and they haven't been able to flip and haven't even known. And so they keep shoving down, discrediting, and pushing away the very beautiful identity that God made them to be, which is a feeler and a perceiver consumed with the intentions of heaven. Yeah, you want to share? Yeah, please do. Sharon, sorry. Yeah. Oh, and one over here. Yay! Is this fun? Are we like, this is so fun? Because like,
This, I heard you say something right there that I don't agree with.
Okay.
But you may
You're not
have,
allowed to disagree with me. I'm sorry.
you may not have said it.
Did you not know? No.
You may not have said what I heard.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So clarify.
Because I think you said God doesn't intend for you to feel all this, never intends for you to feel all this.
Be consumed with the feeling of all this. Yes.
Because he does intend for an empath to feel all this.
Yeah.
And then change it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, good. That's a good clarification.
Well,
Thank
because
you.
it's huge.
No, it's
That's huge.
It's being aware of it and not being able to get out from underneath of it are two totally different things. And that's that huge difference of being a thermostat and a thermometer. A thermometer just can tell the weather, but a thermostat can shift it. And oftentimes people who are high feelers, they end up being secluded. They end up navigating their whole life around whether or not they can handle and navigate atmospheres and emotions. I know, right? I can see a few looks like, because they haven't yet awakened to the fact that, yes, while I feel this, I'm aware of this, I was made to carry such an atmosphere of heaven that it doesn't drive my life. Who God made me to be as an atmosphere changer is the driving force in life. Is that a better way of describing it?
Because the purpose of it is to help those
right
in all this, and that's how you feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yay, thank you. That was so good. Okay.
So I've experienced this as coming into a room and like recognizing like there's turmoil or like something else going on in the room, and I will walk in and I will just sit and not make faces, not like talk to people, and it will change. Like it's really cool, but it's just something that I've been trying out. And like I'm a really big like hugger and smiler and that kind of thing, and I've tried like not like just coming into a room and just sitting and working on my laptop or something like that, and the atmosphere has changed just by me sitting in it and saying like, I don't want that, I want what I have, what I came in with. So that's been like really cool.
In all of your senses, because we're like now saying yes to hearing God in maybe ways we haven't experienced Him before, the biggest, I think, key to knowing what to do is asking two simple questions, and they were actually first proposed to me by Graham Cook, who's kind of my superhero in the faith, just second Taylor, but yes, is what does this mean? What shall I do? What does this mean? What shall I do? And if He doesn't tell you what this means and what you should do, then set it on a table aside until He speaks to you. And just be calm. Just move, because I'm learning how important it is that we get to just respond to God's goodness and not the agenda of negativity. So my most clarifying questions are not why did this happen? Why am I such an emotional person? Or why am I so, people who hear God in their mind also will hear lots of voices in their mind and hear tons and tons of negativity that can happen. It's a similar thing. And so a clarifying question is, what does this mean and what shall I do? But that the Lord gets to answer that, not the confusion. That's right. Can I just say that like is 10 years of my life right there in that couple of sentences? Like, it took me a long time to learn it. So, okay, Taylor.
She wanted to know why we don't have healing on the board. And I'm looking at my papers, making sure I did everything. But
Feeling, perceiving. Oh, you want to put
well, healing is what she put, but I'm asking you.
So, we're talking about senses and the way that we're perceiving God talking to us. But healing, so that's a really great segue. Thank you, Taylor / Holy Spirit, for going, hey, let's just move on, right? Okay. So what many people have thought is that hearing God was a spiritual gift. How many of you grew up in that perspective? Hearing God's a spiritual gift. You might or might not have it. You have it to a certain degree or not. I'm going to propose this theory, which is that it's not a spiritual gift and it's not an ability, it is our right. We were made to be in relationship with God. There was a single one of us that was ever made to be outside of conversational relationship with God. Boom. Yay, right? Yay! I mean, that's a big deal. Do you realize that is a radical thing that just happened just there? Okay, yeah, did you? Yes.
It's really awesome to be here. This is really, really sweet. Thank you so much.
I'm so honored you're here.
Right, wonderful. Just a couple little comments. A lot of the perception and feeling, I believe, is very much related to the intercessors and the intercessory. And the question is, sometimes something is given to be delivered, and other times something is given to be carried.
Yes.
Until the fullness of time. And so there's also a sensitivity to the time of presentation. If it's delivered premature, it may simply be, you might say, an abortion. Or other people will not understand it and will have a lot of kickback and will think it's the problem of the people. But a big part of it is the perception part. The other thing, as you were mentioning earlier, sometimes when you're speaking, something comes to you and even comes out of you that later on you were quite surprised. But I find a lot of that is something your spirit is picking up from the people you're speaking to. I think we all know there are times when you want to speak things and you just can't. It's like there's a wall. And that indicates that the spirit of those people is not able to perceive. And in one sense, God doesn't waste his speaking. He speaks when the receptors are open and willing and ready. But when I'm speaking something and many things come out that I'm surprised about, a lot of it was simply bounced back from the congregation. So if you have a real living meeting, it's not just the person in front that's speaking. All of our spirits are speaking and responding, and there's a kind of a heavenly echo and a chorus that's taking place. And when we get to that place, that's when the body will really move forward. It'll be something more than teaching. It'll be something but a life response taking place.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So let me touch back on that first point that you made, and I feel like this is a perfect timing, and then we'll come back to yours, Taylor, which is one of the things that I'm learning, not just in hearing God's voice for myself, but then you want to start sharing. If you're hearing something and someone's sharing a life circumstance and you feel like you're hearing something with God, the piece that I feel like that you were pointing out is that's so helpful, I'm going to have you put these down here, Greg, is the right person, the right time, and what you say. The Lord asked me for 3 things in my life, and it took him a year to ask me for them. And it was because I was launching into a speaking business, and I had been a professional speaker before, but I was now stepping back into it in a much more public way. And there were 3 things that the Lord asked me for, and he said, will you give me what you say, who you say it to, and when you say it? And it took me a year to say yes to each of those 3 things. Not because I was reluctant, it was because it's that progressive yes that happens in your life where the Lord asks for it in one way and then it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so this has, to me, been one of the biggest lessons, is that I can share the best truth on the planet with a person who's not meant to hear it, and it hurts them. Makes them feel small, makes them feel hurt. So it's really, I think, key as we're learning how to share what we hear God saying, that we share it with the right person. Even our own personal experiences, we get to wait until the right people are in the space who can celebrate with us. Then next is the right message. It's the thing that you're sharing. Those are matched up. What you say, who you say it to, and then when. And I'll never forget, I was in a women's group one time, just a table of 10 women, and I asked the Lord, should I share this? And I didn't hear him say yes or no. And I asked him again, should I share this? I think this would really help them. And because I knew that this thing that I had learned, I thought would help kind of shift them from a negative place into a positive conversation with the Lord. And I didn't hear him again. And so I shared it, and I could tell that it hit, you know? And I was like, that is not okay. The words of the Lord can never condemn someone. That's one of my tests. I know that there is no condemnation in Christ. So if I have shared with the right person, the right time, and the right message, all they feel is loved and built up. And if I can tell that it hit them, that it hurt, it just made that like, oh, they knew it was true, but it makes them feel small, I know that one of these pieces is off. So I drove home and I said, Lord, I don't understand. I asked you whether or not I was supposed to share this, and you didn't say no. And he said, that's because, are you ready for this? He put a list in front of my face, and it had check boxes. And he said, that's because obedience wasn't on the list today. See, I asked you if I should share this. You didn't say no. And he said, that's because obedience wasn't on the list. And what he had on the list was timing. And it had a little box, and he went, check. And I went, what? And he goes, you had the right people, and you had the right message, but you had the wrong time. And this is how it feels. It feels like something has been burst forth in the wrong timing. It falls to the ground as of no use. And it's not because what you shared wasn't right, and it doesn't even mean that it wasn't the right person. It wasn't the right time. And so the Lord was going, there's this multi-dimensional partnership that I get to have with you. And I said, well, what about those women? Because what I share with them, it hit them, you know, in that thing of they knew it was right and they knew it was true, but it made them feel bad about themselves. And that's not the Lord. And he said, oh, that's okay. I got it in the budget. You're learning, I have it in the budget for you to learn how to do this. So I got them covered. And he goes, and today, what I had on the agenda was for you to learn about timing. I need you to understand, because you will want to share things outside of the right timing, and then you wonder, why did my spouse not get how magnificent